Welcome to Tell the Damn Story, the show that explores the many ways to navigate the successes and failures that aspiring and struggling writers face to make your journey that much easier.
Boom, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tell the Damn Story. I'm Chris Ryan, the mystery. He's Alex Simmons, the legend. And we've got a huge panel today to talk to you about their experiences writing so that maybe your experience writing is a little smoother. That's what we do here at Tell the Damn Story. And happy holidays, everybody, because
Ho, ho,
this
ho.
is
Yes.
going to
Merry Christmas,
be
Hanukkah,
kind of a
Kwanzaa. Yes.
holiday episode.
Yes.
I'm going to get right into it because we got a lot of people and a lot of stuff to cover. So the idea, ladies and gentlemen, is that you might have a chance, you might
Uh,
have an
uh,
opportunity,
I'm
you might
sorry.
have an
We have somebody
inspiration.
else showing up.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, ta-da!
Yeah. Talk about timing. Talk about timing.
He's the
Make an
one,
entrance,
the
James. Make
only,
an entrance.
the legend himself,
There he,
James
oh, so
Chambers. Hello, sir.
he
How are you,
stopped for a
sir?
bite. I see.
All right, that's fantastic.
Wait, one quick second. James, say something.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
I just
sir.
wanted to
Right.
make
Yeah,
sure.
I had to get my strength up to
Oh,
keep pace with you, you talented folks.
All right.
I do
So
want
James, we're gonna jump right in here. We said hello to the audience. They're here. They're glad that you're here. And what we're talking about today is that Christmas stories, they seem like they would be all the same, right? Ha, 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 cheer for everybody and all that stuff, but that's not true. There are hundreds of myths and legends and thousands of tales told about the holiday season. And tonight, we're going to explore the treasure trove of ideas that the holiday offers for stories. And to do that, we're going to base it on this book here that I happen to know someone who published this. It's Soul Scream Anthology. Come All Ye Faithless. It's the expanded version with all of these people in it. It is a collection of holiday horror. And we're going to show you how rich the possibilities are to write these stories. Hopefully will inspire you to try your hand. Having said that, yes, we're going to introduce this panel. Okay. And if we were to introduce them with all their accolades, we'd be here until New Year's. So take it from me that we have award winners here. We have bestsellers here. We have newly emerging talents that are skyrocketing, all of that. And I'm going to introduce them by the story that they have in this book here, Come All Ye Faithless. So we're going to begin with James Chambers.
Oh,
right?
geez.
Legend
Oh,
himself.
wow.
James Chambers wrote for us or allowed us to reprint Snow Globe, which is a wondrous tale of Christmas lights and living decorations and darkness and an ancient gift. Just give you a little hint. We don't want to give you too much. James, you'll expand as we go. So, hi, James. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you,
Right.
Alex and Chris, for having me on and for having us all
Oh,
on.
shucks.
Very cool. Let's see. The next one would be someone you might know. His name is Alex Simmons, co-host of this show, and he gave us the story Believe, which is burglars versus what may or may not be Santa's gift bag. So there's a little bit of hint there. Then we had Damon is not here and Rebecca's not here. I contributed Come All Ye Faithless, a story of Desdemona de la Cruz, one of our regulars in Soul Scream Anthology, and she fought Elvin on the Shelvin, a holiday goblin. Then we have the one and only Teal James Glenn. He contributed The Reindeer Game, which is a fun, kind of a cop story, starring Joe Christmas, and his partner, Kenny Krampus. And they're investigating the murder of a grandma, possibly trampled,
Christmas and
maybe
Krampus
by
is
reindeer.
sound like a law
It's
firm.
a big, fun story. It's a lot of, oh man, that's great. Then we have the one, the only, Mark L. Abbott, with The Night of the Yule Cat. And that's kind of a high adventure about which Christmas myths might be real. Trying to give you a little description without giving too much away, Mark. There you go. Say hello. Hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good. I'm pretty good. I'm a little lax, Mark, because I didn't say to Teal, hey, Teal, how are you? There's a lot of people to juggle. You know what I'm saying, Mark? All right.
Mhm.
So who is next? Stephen Van Patten visited the nice list and the naughty list in a story called Naughty. And it's Santa as the ultimate member of the naughty lists, possibly an incubus. A fascinating tale that only SVP could tell. How are you, SVP?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much.
I like that you have your holiday Godzilla on. Very nice. Well done, sir.
Got his
Thank you.
Zilla on. Okay.
Got your Godzilla on. And then we have John Collins. There's John the King Collins, very reserved, doesn't seem, doesn't make a big fuss in public, but his story, Nativity, may have taken the challenge as far into the darkness as possible. Nativity it kind of starts from like a fun family party to absolute devastation and possibly a dark resurrection. Fascinating story. And gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity to say that you all did great stories. I have to thank SVP twice because he gave a second piece, a poem, to the expanded edition called A Monster's Christmas Fix. And it's Santa's gift to Frankenstein. But there's, as with all of your stories, there's so much more to that. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation tonight. And Alex was saying, yes, that's a great idea, dude.
Oh,
It's
yeah. Yeah, I
because
said that. Yes, I did. Right. Yeah. I
you
definitely remember
you
saying
didn't know
that.
he was from Southern Cal, did you?
Yeah, right.
So one of the things that I want to talk about is that all of you, each of you, began your stories with rich description of a traditional holiday trope and then went off into so many different directions. I want to use that as a jumping off point to discuss or to explore what is the appeal of writing holiday horror. Anyone can jump in.
Ah.
Well, I think
Good, John.
okay.
No, John,
I
go
think
for it, John. Go ahead,
for
John. We're
me,
waiting.
okay. For me, it's I like to see the other side of the coin. And Christmas on the surface is very glossy and very family friendly, but it's also the highest suicide rate of the year. And shock among shocks, I like the darkness. I like darker side of things. So it just seemed like a pretty obvious direction for me to go in, because for me, Christmas horror is either it's very family friendly Gremlins, or it's like the French film Inside, which is the complete opposite of family friendly. And I like to go in between those. My story in this one was a little tough because I know you're not looking for anything extreme, and there was definitely some tense moments in this story. So that
There
was the
was
challenge.
Yeah, there was room for your story, which is a more serious story, as James was more wondrous and SVP's more challenging, and Mark's it was so informative that you got lost in this new take on one of the old legends. And Alex was one of the ones who came through. Alex and James came through on the early version, and Alex is the most grounded in his, and then Teal is the most hilarious. So there was room for what you offered, John, because everyone else was so so themselves. It's really a cool thing to see. Well, it's one of the most rewarding things of Soul Scream Anthologine is to see how you do what you do. Teal, you were going to say something about.
I was just going to say that the thing about holiday horror, any holiday, because even if you use Fourth of July or Arbor Day or whatever, is it's which is scary if you're an ant. It's a common gate that everybody has. Everybody knows there are holiday traditions for this or that, and everybody's experienced them. So if you can present them, oh look, it's a happy 4th of July party, and then you discover that the clown is eating the kids, you've taken people into a weird place. And so I think it makes it easier to pull the rug out from underneath them, because everyone comes into it with an expectation. And as soon as you start to subvert those expectations, you start to kind of kick the legs out from underneath the chair they're sitting on. And I think that's why there are so many holiday stories, because it's almost easier to do a 90 degrees off expectations, because you don't have to fill in all the pieces. Everyone knows what the holiday's supposed to be. So you don't have to spend a lot of time setting it up. You can just hint at it and then go left. And then people are discombobulated. They have no idea what's going to go on.
But that's one of the reasons that attracts us to this kind of reading. So yeah. James?
Yeah,
Mark?
I wanted to just kind of jump on something Teal was saying about expectations. And I think one of the things that appeals to me about writing holiday horror is it's a time of year where people are not acting in their normal routines. Emotions are often running high in all directions. People are joyful, people are stressed, people are depressed. It's a time of year when we're just pushed outside our regular day to day, and we go overboard with decorations. And so it creates all these opportunities for things that aren't normally there to be there all of a sudden, and for people maybe to not see them for what they really are, which creates a lot of, sort of, I want to say shadows, more shadows for monsters to lurk in, but really it's more lights for monsters to lurk in and hide
Yeah.
and sneak up on you from behind while you think it's
Merry and bright.
the carolers from down the block or something.
Yeah.
And the other piece for me is that Christmas legends in particular are creepy. They're great, they're joyful, they're wondrous, but this jolly old guy's coming down your chimney at night.
Yes.
He has a labor force of elves. If you're bad, he's going to put coal in your stocking. What's that about? And that, to me, there's a lot, and then if you get into some of the older ones, like we mentioned Krampus, then you're really getting into these monstrous traditions.
It's fascinating how many different traditions came from different parts of the world, but have crossed borders and given us this rich tapestry to play with. For example, the Yule Cat.
Yes, and didn't know about that guy for quite a minute. The thing is, I was talking to some people about this the other night. The expectation is that monsters only come out in Halloween.
Right.
And it's always like, oh, it's October, it's the spooky month. And we kind of forget that traditionally ghost stories were the height of the thing to be told during Christmas. Um, I think it's actually mentioned in one of in the carols that we sing, the Christmas songs about sitting around telling ghost stories and things of that nature. So it again, like many of the participants have already said, it takes people out of their comfort zone for a while because you don't associate horror with a particular happy holiday. And soon as horror is introduced, for some strange reason, people are like, well, no, there shouldn't be. And most of you guys could correct me if I'm wrong. I remember in 1984 when Silent Night, Deadly Night came out, and the poster of Santa going down the chimney with the axe, and mother groups were like, that's why would you do that? And it's like, you just mentioned it. You got this creepy old man running down your chimney. And if you think about it, Tales from the Crypt did stories about Santa,
Yeah.
you know, demented
Oh yeah.
Santa Clauses
In
and
the
elves and
70s.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we forget. I think it's the wonderful thing is that we have to remind people
Yeah.
that horror is not only relegated to October, but
Right.
it happens all year round in every season.
If I could add to what Mark is saying, and then Alex has something, I would point to Charles Dickens, who my wife's a big fan. I'm not that big a fan, except for Christmas Carol, which is in essence a ghost story, and in some parts a horror story, and it's social horror, which is still very. There's a lot of social horror going on. So yeah, Alexa Gente.
Yeah, I was just going to say that another way of looking at the flexibility and the utility of horror is, yeah, you can use it to scare people and remind people that, life can come at you like a Mack truck at any point in any part of the day or year or month. But the other thing you can also use it is to remind you of being thankful for what you have, for the good that was in your life until, or remembering the values that are really important and then have to fight for that to try and survive this horror to get back to savoring that the family or the loved one or whatever it is. But I mean, in my story, that was a part of it, was to remind people that yes, there is this terrible scenario that can occur, but sometimes we have to band together to deal with this so that we can survive it and then be thankful for what we have. So I think that's just, again, it's like you can use horror in so many different ways at any time of the year. And I think, Christmas is certainly a bountiful time for that.
I agree. I agree. Anyone else? SVP, you went in a very different direction.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, and people have heard me say this a million times. It's like when it comes to the hollow days, as I call it, once Halloween is over with, a lot of my emotional investment just kind of goes out the window. I'm just that's how I'm built. That's what my past experiences and my current state of complete disillusionment with the world has kind of like produced as far as I'm concerned. And I agree that Dickens's Christmas Carol definitely set a certain tone in terms of, it's like it isn't just about being happy and merry and all that other stuff. There is some dark undertones with a holiday that's steeped in commercialism.
Right.
So that was always, I mean, I was fascinated by that story, always enjoyed it. I even more than a couple of times I have suggested to people, hey, if you actually put on the Christmas Carol, I would like to be the ghost of Christmas Future.
Nice.
And I think I'd be pretty good at that. But anyway, so when it came time for me to write a story, as James will tell you, since I think he and a few other people first heard me read that story out loud at an event. And this was, and by the way, people picking up Come All You Faithless, this is a sort of a redacted version.
Thank you, SVP.
It is a redacted version. I have to remind people because the unfiltered version, I don't think I ever saw James more red. And I mean that in the most loving way possible. But yeah, it's a salacious Christmas story. Let's just put it like that. And it's my way of, I guess, if nothing else, addressing my own personal issues with the holiday. And, and I did have fun writing the story. I'm not
Oh yeah.
gonna,
Well, the
I'm not
story
gonna
is a
lie.
lot of fun, and it still has some salacious qualities. But SVP, being the absolutely golden soul that he is, was very giving to me when I said, listen, can we, just because the idea of Soul Scream is that you can read it and then give it to, say, a high school nephew or whatever. And he said, I got you, and made it just the very topmost of high school, like a R that the kids would sneak in and love,
Right.
watching with their parents not knowing, which thank you very much. We appreciate it. So imagine
All
what it
good.
was like when James experienced it. But
So Chris, you've read the unexpurgated
I
version?
did, and then I got up off the floor, and it's, I mean, it's wall to wall entertainment. Okay, and
Ho, ho, ho.
This is one
yeah,
of the best
and
commercials
that's part of
for
the
people
situation.
running out to get this thing. People,
Yes.
I mean,
Well,
looking
yeah, I
for
need to read
bad
this
boy
version.
now.
I wouldn't have a problem with that, to tell you the truth. But like I said, SVP was very generous in saying, all right, I understand what your goal is. I got you. And the version that's in here is within the parameters, and yet you still get the idea of what's going on. So I think we covered everybody for that first
Yes,
round.
we did. Yes, we did.
Okay, so each of you took a, like, as you can tell from just the first round of answers, each of you took a very, very, very different path to tell your particular holiday horror story. And I'm hoping that we can discuss the origins or the inspirations for each of your ideas. And to help those watching or listening, if you could be so kind as to remind people of the title of your story, whatever else you think they need to understand, and then talk about the origins or the inspiration, just to show how many places we can gather inspiration from. And anybody can jump in.
Notice how quickly we rallied to that.
I'll jump in because mine's the quickest and easiest. My story was Reindeer Games.
Yes.
And it's based on a song and an episode of Dragnet. That's really all you need to know. I just think that the absurdity of it worked for it. I have
definitely.
written other stories with Krampus in them, but this particular one, it was sort of like there wasn't a hell of a lot of thought. It just went, bing, this idea, and just go. I've even written a radio version of it because I just think it's ridiculously astute. But
well, as salacious as SVP's might have been, yours is kind of wacky, lighthearted fun.
Oh,
So
it's absolutely
fascinating how the
absurd.
range,
and built on a scientific fact. That's actually the thing that once I knew that scientific fact, which I'm not going to give away because it kills the end of the story,
right.
I went, oh, that's just a natural, because why wouldn't you? And then I just had fun with it. I mean, I could actually see returning to those characters someday because they're so stupid.
Yeah, but
they are
stupid.
They're delightfully dumb in the way that the Three Stooges are. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would have gone Laurel and Hardy, but okay.
yeah, Laurel and Hardy,
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello. It's absolutely would not be in a highbrow literary magazine. Although
Call for it.
Anthologine is also very highbrow in portions thereof.
How did you have a scientific fact? You have Dragnet, and you have a very well-known Christmas song, Grandma. And then how did you say, yeah, those three go together?
I honestly, when I heard the song the very first time, this popped into my head, and it was just a while later before I actually said, I got to write it. It's just so stupid, the song, and that there was a guy in some radio station in the Midwest who locked himself in the station and played it continuously for 17 hours.
Oh my goodness.
He was going through apparently some sort of a divorce, and they finally had to like blow up the transmitter to get him out of there, and the publisher of the song pleaded for him to get his job back, and eventually apparently he did. But when I heard that, I said, someday I have to do something with this song, because it's so, if it can have this effect on this human being, I can do something with it. And then the format of believe me, I don't know why my camera's doing this. If I could find the right format, and then I said, well, Dragnet, I have to play it absolutely straight.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason it works, is because it's such an absurd concept that if you play it absolutely straight, it becomes funny. If anybody within it had joked, it would have blown the whole thing. So
the characters don't make a joke the entire time, but you're laughing throughout.
Not even
best way to do comedy.
Hear it. Just They got to play it absolutely deadpan. It's the copper clapper caper. But yeah, I mean, it was not a lot of deep thought, but it was an immediate moment when I heard the song, and it was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years before I realized the way to tell the story was
Right.
Dragnet, because I
There
just
you go.
thought it was such an absurd circumstance. I'm like, well, yeah, somebody's got to do something with this. And then I went, oh, Dragnet, that's the way. Just take it absolutely as straight and unvarnished as possible.
And the characters they stand out as honoring Dragnet, but characters in their own right. So that's very good. Thank you for that.
And of course, once I decided on Kenny Krampus, I knew
You knew where to go.
Joe Friday always had like a sidekick that was
Right.
a little off.
Right,
And I
right.
thought, well, if you're going to have Joe Christmas, his sidekick has to be a little off. It's got to be a Krampus.
Kenny Krampus. There you go.
It sells
All right,
itself.
who's next? Thank you.
Oh heck. It's funny because I literally don't remember being inspired by anything other than the circumstance itself, which was,
This was your story, Believe, right?
yes, right. I'm sorry. Thank you. Believe. Because again, without setting up too much, it's three women in a terrifying scenario. And it's a scenario, where again, being powerless is it's one of its most frightening moments. And
Yeah.
I just thought in that particular situation, are they waiting for someone to come and rescue them? Or do they need to be in a position to do something about it themselves in order to survive this? And it just sort of went there. And then the only other element, because it was supposed to be a Christmas story, was I said, what setting? And I went total Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, sort of Christmas Yule log, snow on the fence around the beautiful. I just, okay, that's it. I'm going to give them that total environment. It's a Christmas cookie environment,
Yeah.
right? And then throw that horror into that scenario and then see what happens. And again, the title sort of sets up for what does happen. And hopefully, I think, in terms of the payoff.
Yeah. I'll jump in with, I actually have three things in here. I forgot. So I have the Desdemona de la Cruz fighting Elvin on the Shelvin. And that story came into existence because I really detest the shelf on the elf on the shelf. So I wanted to twist that around, and then it became a goblin it was actually the original cover. And then I realized that I had used an app, but then I realized the app was AI, so I had to replace the cover. And this
Yeah,
is
hold it up again. Yes.
this is me not being able to afford another cover, so that's me and Elvin on the shelf in makeup. So it was just going on that, and then I love to go around the neighborhood in the daytime when all the inflatables are laying dead on the lawns, Santa corpses. So I wrote a little piece on that, and then those westerns where the guy's walking down the middle of the one street. I had an image of that with another of the Revenant characters, McTavish, who is a skeleton in an army jacket. And then I realized he was the second one who had walked down that street. The first one was in a Santa suit and had explosively escaped an asylum and was going back to deal with the bullies that sent him there. So we're able to, there is that other side of the holiday of the haves and the have-nots, and the people who think they're the winners and how they can abuse the others. And I wanted to work on that. So again, they all came from one little idea or something that irked me, and then you build it out from there.
Can I ask? I'm curious because Mark's just looking too damn cool. Talk to me about Yule Cat. I'm really curious where that came from.
Okay.
Wrap
So
in.
Yule Cat actually it came from there were three different things going on. The first iteration of the story had nothing to do with the Yule Cat. What I was trying to figure out was what would Santa do if something was out to harm children on the night he has to go and deliver packages, because we know about the Krampus stuff. And I was trying, and I knew one thing I knew he had a demented reindeer that he kept for very, very special occasions. Like, and that personally stemmed from Rudolph, over the fact of what would Rudolph have done if Santa had said, won't you drive my sleigh tonight? And he was like, no, you teased me and you picked on me and now you need my help. No. And it was like one of those things where he's just that kind. So I needed a vehicle for that crazed reindeer. Um, Yule Cat came up because I was watching the Christmas Chronicles with Kurt Russell.
Mhm.
And the second movie, he's chasing the Yule Cat. And I'm sitting there going, wait, what is that? Because I'd never actually heard of a Yule Cat. So I
Right.
looked him up and I was like, oh,
This is
this
the one.
guy, this is the one. This is the guy that I want to use, because I didn't realize how crazy he was. You
Right.
know, you suddenly start to delve into all these different Christmas characters.
Myths and legends. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It,
because
it, it's
Krampus is the one we
fascinating.
all know.
Isn't it
So
fascinating, Mark, that
it
not
is.
all of the legends and myths are Hallmark ready?
No,
There's a lot of
they're
dark
like,
ones out there.
so I'm like, okay, so the Yule Cat is loose. And I got that idea. I was like, all right, Santa chases him for some reason. Okay, the Yule Cat is used. It's apt, but why is it loose? Had to come up. And that's how I came up with the idea for the family and the belief, because I'm a firm believer children should be allowed to have that wonder. People are like, oh, you let your kid believe in Santa Claus. Why not? You know, we believe in so many other different things in this world. Why not allow that? So what happens if one person believes one thing, but the parents believe something else? And that idea of, you never told me when you were a kid you believed in this. You know, we always have, every kid has that one story the parent has drilled over years till they find out the truth.
Mm.
And then it's like, you didn't tell me this. And it's like, why? I didn't think you needed to know anything about that. And it's like, great. You just get a Yule Cat showing up at the house because of your whatever it is. So I just wanted to have fun with it.
And fun you did, yeah.
And I just enjoy, and that once I had the vehicle for both the mad reindeer and the cat, I was like, and of course the name of the reindeer was, I was like, oh yeah, Donner Blitzen, and then I was like, oh yeah, I definitely gonna give him that name. And I've had people go, why did you choose of all? And I was like, well, if you know World War II, you
Right.
know what that means, and without giving it away what his name is. And
Yep.
I
Yeah.
just
It's
had a lot of fun
worth
with it.
saying.
So making
Um,
people think too is a
right.
whole other thing, you know, discovery and then doing some considerations. Yeah.
SVP, your twin contributions are
Yes.
very, very different.
They are.
So
Absolutely.
let's start with the origins of A Monster's Christmas Fix. Santa comes into a bar to visit Frankenstein. Where'd this come from?
I've always had a sort of a soft spot for Frankenstein, as I'm sure a lot of people who've actually read the
Well, James
book
Bond.
and, you know, aren't aren't all engrossed in the whole, oh, he's ugly, oh, he's this, and you know, he's terrorizing villages and everything else like that. I always kind of looked at him as incredibly misunderstood. It also occurred to me that if he really is going up into the Arctic, it kind of makes sense that one mythological creature would eventually run into the other mythological creature.
Sure.
And if anybody would get Frankenstein, it would be whatever we've been taught Santa Claus to be. So, sure, they're pals. And part of the premise of it is, you know, not only did they meet, he actually hung out up there with Santa for a little bit, might even help make some toys,
Do
help
some
the
heavy
elves
lifting.
do some
Yeah.
heavy lifting.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
know?
Help the elves get to the higher shelves, you
Yeah,
know,
you
that
know.
kind of thing. And then,
Go
like
bowling.
right, because they definitely have a bowling alley. That's no
They got a
question
league.
about
They
that.
got a league.
Yes. Of course, now they probably have pickleball. But anyway, because, trends. So I'm thinking, yeah, but being the wandering spirit, he eventually kind of says, all right, Santa Land's fun, but I'm still Frankenstein's monster, and let me get out of here. So the gift, and again, I do make my commentary on commercialism and,
Sure.
just the general like malaise that has currently turned me off to the holiday for the most part. But
the gift,
yes, and
Ah.
just to make things right, so to speak, or just to help out. So
Yeah. And with challenges,
absolutely.
yeah, it's a facet. You see it take a left when we find out who Santa is meeting,
Mhm.
but then it takes a sharp right into a whole different set of considerations that I think lift it from a cool piece to something that stays with you after you've closed the book and gone on. So yeah, really amazing, especially since it appears later in the book than Naughty. So you read Naughty and couple of stories later, you've gone to confession, you've done your decade of the rosary, doused yourself in holy water to try and get over the reading of that story. And then this comes, and if you see the author's name, you think, uh-oh, and you start ready, and it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing.
Well, I like to think I have a little versatility in me. You know what I'm
lot
saying?
of versatility. The range, my brother.
Oh, I appreciate you.
How
So
about
yeah.
Speaking of
So-
brother, how about brother John?
well, we're gonna get there in a second. I can't resist
Sure, you
just-
can. Okay.
just asking where Naughty came from.
My
Are you
personal
sure?
life.
We got
No,
to change
I'm
our
kidding.
rating now for this one.
No. Well, okay, I'll try to
Earmuffs.
keep this. Oh, stop
Mothers
it.
and children.
We're all grown-ups, and I'm not even gonna swear in this explanation, but I will say this. Now, as writers that deal with the dark stuff,
Right.
we all end up meeting people in our travels. Some of those people being a little eccentric or more eccentric than others. Okay, so one of these individuals, I guess she fancied herself some kind of a witch or something like that. Not exactly 100% swift on it, but at one point she basically said to me that I possess the energy of a sex vampire.
Ah.
Now, mind you, nothing transpired between
Sure.
myself and this woman.
No, sure, right.
I
Okay.
did not have relations with this. I didn't. And so I don't know where any of that came from, but it obviously stuck in the back of my mind because it's not like every day somebody accuses me of being a sex vampire. All right, fine. So knowing what a sex vampire actually is, would be a succubus or an incubus and everything like that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that all kind of was sitting back there until one day it was like, wait, you know who goes in people's houses and nobody really thinks about it, and it kind of like it's okay because he's bringing PlayStations and shit? Like, it's Santa Claus. Santa Claus can get into everybody's house. Again, without giving too much away, it's an incubus that is living
Posing.
under a massive pretense. And the wild thing, of course, is just like any other monster, there are rules to his monsterdom
Sure.
that he has to adhere to. But once those rules are kind of shifted according to the circumstance, then it's on, baby. It's on. And yeah.
And yes, it is. And well worth it. Well worth the trip. Oh my God. And James is still recovering. We're going to give James a moment to recover while we talk to John about the origins of
Nativity.
yes, but I have to say, I think this might be the most serious of the stories in this volume. Most heartfelt and Oh man, it's the one that haunted me the longest, which is, I mean, I couldn't turn it away because it was that powerful. So where did this come from? John the King Collins?
Well, I was working on this story without the Christmas setting while I was doing edits for my novella. And so it kind of, if I could say any story could coexist with something else I wrote, it would be those two
And the
stories.
name of the novella?
Um, the Leeds Point Horror.
Great book.
Thank you. And it was a bummer. It was a bummer. So I actually, when you mentioned this project, I came up with an idea of and I actually wrote out the first draft of Santa Claus's sleigh getting shot down, and he crash lands in a Best Buy during a like a Christmas Eve sale-a-thon, and basically Santa Claus becomes predator, and he's hunting the shoppers. But it read more like a video game manual than it did a story,
Okay.
so I really didn't do anything to it.
This is a very different story from that.
Oh, much different. This Christmas, I'm starting to enjoy Christmas again. For a long time, I didn't because my family, is more my brother, my mother and father, they were very steeped in grief,
Yes.
having the loss of a child. And I mean, it forever changed our holidays.
Sure.
So, I mean,
As it would, yeah.
The black magic trappings of the story aside, this story is about grief and the effects it has on somebody during the holidays. Because when you're seeing everyone else follow singing carols, the December to Remember and all that other nonsense, you forget that in some houses it's not a happy time.
Yes.
And how far would you go with your grief? And that was the basis of the story. And
And you
it
were
was
brave
cathartic
in how
writing it.
far you took it. It was, especially in the context you just explained, I'm struck with the what heart it must have taken to write that particular story.
It was tough. It was a tough story to write, and I hate being the downer guy. I hate being. I don't always want to be the guy that's like, oh, it's John doing John's thing. I don't always like that. I like fun stuff, but I can't ignore the things that I can't ignore what's going on in my world.
Sure.
Nor should you.
Oh,
So it seemed to make sense to go with this story, but yeah, I have to put in the lens, we're saying before, horror, it can be many things. Horror can be cathartic,
yes.
especially to the person creating it. Maybe I scarred somebody for reading it, and good. But for me creating it, I'll be honest, that the Chris, I sent that story to you before Christmas.
Yeah.
I had a better mindset for Christmas that year.
Sure. Well,
I
I
had a better
appreciate
mindset because I unloaded
having
it.
the opportunity to do that, to provide that
I appreciate
opportunity. But and again, it widens the range of the collection. So we need all things. And for the purposes of this episode, it shows everybody out there that you give yourself license to write whatever is within you. And that leads us, John, you're going to love this. This is a transition for the ages. It leads us from the darkness to the Spielberg story of the collection, which is the wonder that is James Chambers, just the depth and breadth of what he plays with in Snow Globe it's fantastic. I can't wait to hear you talk about this, James, because there's almost everything in it that is not in all the other stories. And yours was one of the first ones that I received. And it's the first story in the collection and sets the bar rather high for everything else. Can you talk to us a little bit about origins and inspirations for Snow Globe?
Thank you for the kind words, Chris. I appreciate
You'll
it.
get my bill.
And I want to just say that SVP doesn't exactly not give off the sex vampire vibe. So
It's a little there, Even in a Zoom, you feel it a little bit.
The title is Snow Globe, and I think it's kind of a cue that this was inspired in a lot of ways by holiday decorations.
Right.
And, I've always enjoyed driving around during the holiday season at night, seeing houses lit up, seeing holiday displays in people's yards. I've, gone out of my way at times with my kids, my wife, to go see those houses that go so far over the top they make the news, that kind of thing. And it's
Oh,
always
you're the
just
housing stalker. Okay, now we know. Now we know.
that's it. How many Christmas lights have you got, Alex? I'm coming. No. And that just started the idea spinning about, well, what if there's something more to this? What if some of these houses, those dense layered holiday light displays, do something more than just entertain and give kids something wondrous to look at? What if they actually served a purpose to protect from something more nefarious that, because of all that light, we don't ever see? And I went from there, and the story also has cosmic horror elements to it, which is always one of my favorite horror subgenres to play in. And there's a lot of family elements to it. There's tension over the silliest things. There's tension over which route they took to get from home to the in-laws. And it's just like, I think everybody has experienced that kind of thing around the holidays. It's, like I was saying earlier, just that heightened emotionality, heightened stress that we're doing all this extra stuff and pushed past our fatigue limits perhaps at times. And I'd always wondered, basically, and I hope I'm not giving too much away, but what would happen if all those Christmas decorations had more of a more active role to play in the display than just being there and being bright?
That's
And the
fascinating.
the snow globe reference is the whole thing is sort of contained within a I don't, like a bubble of light from the decorations. And to me, that's, one of the quintessential Christmas decorations is the snow globe.
Sure. But then you extend that metaphor of the snow globe to the light of all of the front yard decorations kind of form a globe of light that plays a very integral part of the plot as well. There's so many things that you take advantage of within that initial drive-by with you and your family. And you really did one of those things where, how can I use this? How can I use that? To great effect. I think if we were to sell this book to Netflix, I think the biggest budget would have to go to Snow Globe, and maybe some of the special effects in Marks and Teal James, and then uh, getting past the censors with SVPs, and then the
Oh,
ending
come
for
on, it's
John's. John's is
Netflix.
pretty amazing.
We need to take
I
a
think we
jump.
just need some makeup on for me, and a wondrous bag for Alex. Yes, sir.
We need to
Mine is
take a
complete
no, wait,
grindhouse.
hang on one second. Hang on. I'm sorry. I tried it to be subtle about this. James, start
Yeah.
talking, please.
Yes, I will just say that if we sold SVP's story to a network, it would have to be Skinamax.
There you go.
Okay. So here's the thing. Almost
Yeah.
every time you speak, James, there's a look back right to
Are you
the,
still hearing that? I heard it a little bit.
So,
I'm not
yeah,
hearing it now.
yeah, it's still there, and I'm just wondering what that is. If there's
Let
anything,
me check my audio set.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the man in white, James Chambers.
It's
Uh,
From
Krampus.
Snow Globe.
um,
I can cut all this out, so I'm not
Yeah.
worried about.
does this sound any better? Is it still occurring?
No, that's good.
Recite the Gettysburg Address.
No.
Your score 7 holiday seasons ago
There it is.
came back.
Okay, so whatever it is, we'll just have to be aware of it. I
Yeah.
don't want to take too much time, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My apologies.
No problem.
Tech is tech.
Yeah. So let's do a question, a really open-ended question, but again, a lot of the people who watch or listen to this show are emerging writers who are still on their journey, perhaps earlier than many of us or many of you. So the how question comes up for them very often. So can we talk about some of the joys and some of the challenges of writing these kind of stories, dealing with holiday and then getting in what we want to say. Can we talk about some of that?
Yeah. For me, the biggest obstacle I face is it's not so much an obstacle, it's an end goal. I don't ever want to offend anybody. In the end, I want someone to maybe obviously I want someone to get frightened by what I write. I'm unapologetically a horror writer.
Right.
Um,
And you did
but
your
I
job
don't want,
well.
thank you. But I never want to offend anybody. If someone said they were like deeply offended by something, I would really that would bother me, even if everyone's different, of course, and different things bother different people.
Right.
But that criticism would stick with me. So I understand that the holiday season is sacred for some people, and those same people can go off and watch Gremlins or read a Christmas horror novel.
Yeah.
But I never want someone to turn around and say, you're really insulting me with that. That to me is I kind of tap dance with that with certain subjects. The
Sure.
holiday season being what it is one of those subjects. So that was a big challenge for me because I knew I was going dark. But
But you do it like your opening is so vividly festive, the family celebration of Christmas. And then the transition from that earns the empathy.
Yeah.
Because everyone has experienced the festivity. But then when you realize where this person really is, you'd have to be a cold person indeed, not to feel, oh my God, this poor person. And then when you realize why he and his wife are where they are, it sets us up. It kind of like straps us into the roller coaster or the fun house, because what happens for the last third is earned by the first two. And that's that's for a writer, that is worth the price of admission itself to see how that transition goes from the trope festivity of family to where you are or where the character is and then where they go.
Right.
It's really well earned.
John, but
thank you.
what were you saying? Just continue with where you felt though.
Well, the one thing that if I was to tell somebody like how to do this, learn restraint, because the one thing with sending stuff to you, Chris, and then me and Jim have been criticizing our stuff together for a bunch of years now, is learn restraint. Because I think honestly, if I had wrote this story 5 years ago, I would have offended somebody. I would have gone that step too far. So if I was going to tell anybody, find your restraints and stick with it. I mean, your restraints could be 50 miles wide. That's fine. But find that
You
area
could be a
where
sex vampire.
sex vampires for everybody. But I think the biggest challenge for this story in particular was knowing your limits, because you have a pretty good parameter of where you want something to be in. And as you use movie rating systems all the time,
Right.
you didn't want an NC-17, and
Right.
this story could easily gone into that.
Yes.
So I think that was the challenge. But I also, when I was done with it, I felt good about it. I didn't, I was really worried about sending it to you because I thought it might have been too dark for you. But I also knew I wasn't like ladling, I wasn't taking buckets of blood and throwing it all over the place. It's dark and in some ways extreme because of the tone in the story itself,
Yeah, it's
not
kind of
because of
horror
what
of
I
the heart,
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was it for me.
Good.
Excellent. Excellent.
Good.
Who
Can we
next?
go to Mark again?
We
'Cause
can.
he's too quiet. He's too quiet. I don't trust him.
I trust him. I trust him implicitly.
Yeah.
The challenge is being different. I think One of the hard parts whenever you're doing any type of horror story, particularly when we get, particularly with the Christmas, we go straight for the ones we all know.
Right.
I love research. I love finding out new concepts, new ideas. Somebody says, "Oh, you wrote a horror Christmas story." Yeah. Oh, it's about Krampus? No. There are other, we have to look beyond just the normal and then turn the stories on their head. Don't do the same thing because it is easy to have them do the same thing over and over and over again, just in a different setting. How do we what's what's the nuance? What do we do differently this time with the character as opposed to the same thing? Because the characters have limitations. There's certain things that you can go outside of the box. You don't just want to go too far outside of the box where people spend more time questioning why you went outside of the box rather than enjoying the story.
Right. You don't want to throw
So,
people out of the story. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, that was the challenge of trying to figure out where do I go with these particular characters? What's different that I can do? And then the story just kind of grew on its own organically. But research. If I
Mhm.
say anything, my advice to any writer, do some more homework.
Yeah.
The fun part is finding out those little nuances about things you didn't know, and you'd be amazed at some of the amazing stories you could tell.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah. That's such a richness out there. Thank you.
Mm.
Um, you know what? Let's go to someone who used Krampus, right, in a very unique way. Teal, what do you got to say about the joys and challenges of your particular story?
I agree with Mark. You look for something that when you start to do the research for a story, that's when you usually find the stuff that makes the story interesting. Like I said, the one scientific fact, which was the kickoff at the end of the story, was what gave me the story. I saw that and went, oh,
Right.
that thing that I put in the shelf years ago about that song and this. And I've written in my Jack Silence stuff, I've written stories with a Krampus, where he's a client who hires the detective. Because again, 15 years ago, nobody in the States talked about the Krampus.
True.
Then suddenly we have a whole bunch of Krampus movies and all the rest of it. And the Icelandic Yule cat suddenly is here.
That's
But,
right.
there's so many Yule traditions that got absorbed, and each country has their own. I mean, there's a Christmas witch in Italy that beats the crap out of you if you're bad.
That's
You
right.
know, everyone has their own specific character, and so in this case, it was that scientific fact that kicked it off. And I just said, well, if I'm going to have something near the North Pole and it's going to be Joe Christmas, then I'm going to have the Krampus, and because the Krampus in European tradition, the Krampus and Santa Claus are not enemies.
No.
They handle two different parts of the department. You got your naughty boy and you got your nice guy. It's kind
Good
of
cop,
like,
bad cop.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
good cop, bad cop, and it's kind of like the Chuck Jones cartoon with the sheepdog and the coyote,
Yes.
Sure.
wolf. They clock in the morning.
Yep.
I see it that way. It's like, of course, Krampus would be on the police force because when somebody needs to get beat up, you leave the room and the Krampus takes over.
Okay.
But like I said, mine was not deeply researched because I wanted it to stay very light and anisette cookie like rather than a good Christmas,
Steak.
fruit loaf.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fruit loaf. There you go.
yeah, but yeah, I always, if I start working on something, I'll have a general idea and then I start to do the research and I'll usually find the details that make the story happen. And often they will change the whole direction of it.
Sure.
But that is the joy of it, is when you
Oh,
find something like, oh, that's a really cool fact. How the hell can I use that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that building was across the street from that. Oh, that changes where my character has to go because that building now has significance.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Or that song premiered that week, and that song totally speaks to what my story is about. And I mean, I've been doing research on something, and one of the things I discovered for something I'm writing that has the Klan in it, the Ku Klux Klan, is that it basically was a pyramid scheme. That when you joined,
Right.
you had to pay for each level. You had to pay your dues, but you also had to buy your outfit from their official supplier and go to their official cleaner to have your hood washed.
A bunch of
And
shitheads.
that totally changes the whole complexion of the whole thing. It was
Sure.
No pun
Complexion,
intended.
interesting choice
Amway
of
for
words.
racist, you know? It was Amway for racist. So, but that fact I
Can't
only
wait for
came to
racists.
after months of research. I'm like, oh my God, that totally changes everything. So
Right.
yes, absolutely. The research totally sends you in other directions. And even if you have to sacrifice the original story, it's almost always going to be more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, part of the job is we're kind of miners, and we get that nugget, and
Yeah.
it kind of lights the way. There's a segue, Alex. Lights the way.
Yeah.
Let's go to James Chambers. Hey, bro.
You're muted, James. We're not hearing you.
Uh-oh.
Oh, now he is. Check
There
one.
he goes.
No.
Nope.
Have the volume up and down.
James, do me a favor, just quickly.
How's that?
There you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that helps a little with the crackle too. But
So just for his edits, let's go to speaking of light, let's go to James Chambers. And what are your joys and challenges for Snow Globe?
for Snow Globe in particular, it was just fun to play with the decorations. I had to dig deep and remember all the different kinds of these vinyl light up outdoor Christmas decorations, snowmen, elves, candy canes, everything I could think of, and bring them all together. But one of the things you said earlier, Chris, is sticking in my head, which is if we're talking to new writers or younger writers, how to approach a holiday story. And I think it presents a really great, unique opportunity for new writers, especially those trying to sort of find their way, find their voice, because every family has unique traditions that only they do around the holidays. And if you're ever stuck for something, lean into that. That's your particular spin to put on a holiday story. And it gives you something no one else is going to write about. And I think it's the kind of approach that helps you start thinking about, in general, how do I approach horror stories or other types of stories from my unique perspective as an author, from my experience. So to me, it seems I was thinking all of this while you were speaking. It would be a great exercise for any new or young writer to write a genre holiday story.
It's a great opportunity to mention, James, that the more specific that family tradition, the more universal it reads. For example, when I was reading the opening of Snow Globe, where they're kind of lost because of a shortcut, and they're all tense about going to this family Christmas. Throughout my youth, we went to a family Christmas. That was wonderful, but it didn't stop my mom from freaking out every year. And it became very tense for everybody because, the well under 5 foot tall little Spanish cyclone was going off. And I immediately just locked right in to the story because I had I knew that experience. I knew that tension. And you had no idea about that when you were writing it, and you didn't even know I was going to read it, right? But it's that thing where the specific becomes universal, and it allows people in. So young writers, don't shy away and say no one would know that. We all go through the same thing.
I think writing from that place forces you to be honest and authentic.
Yeah.
And that people do respond to that because there are those, like you said, universal experiences underneath it all.
And can I mention one other thing about your story, and especially thinking about you writing it, I couldn't help the image of you as a child or a boy or whatever.
With a goatee. It was
No, no.
he talked about that.
Yes, yes, it was a
Yeah.
smaller
It was
goatee.
precocious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting really into whether you were playing with toy soldiers or action figures or whatever you played, it because of how much detail you gave to all of the decorations and how much life you gave to everything in that story, I was like, wow, this guy played for hours with his imagination. Is that true? Is there any kernel of truth there?
Yeah, no, I did. I'm sure I spent at least as much time as any other 8 to 12-year-old boy
Yeah.
lining up my Matchbox cars and GI Joe figures and Star
Sure.
Wars figures and
Yeah.
putting them through their paces.
Yeah.
And then drawing too. I used to draw a lot as a kid, and I would draw those characters or make up my own. And I think I used to draw these, sort of epic stick figure battles with weird tanks and airships and things. And I think a lot of kids go through that phase.
Sure.
And but I did,
I just think writers kind of
Yeah.
some of it stays with them, and that kind of helps see through the possibility of his story. And again, I like to tap into things like that for people who are like, oh, my experience is, it doesn't account for everything. Yes, it does. It all does, and it all contributes. I mean, being a sex vampire is a lot of great training for writing a fantastic story. How about that for a transition?
Because this episode is packed with so much great information, we've split it into 2 episodes. So if you want to know what it's like training to be a sex vampire, or at least to write about one, then keep an eye out for part 2, dropping in just a few days.